So, hello everyone. Today we're walking through one of our first concrete stories from the Federation. And for more context, the Federation is the Real World Asset Federation, which right now is 3 companies that are all together under a shared governance framework. And the result so far has been 200 million in physical gold going on chain through ION, a new stablecoin called pmUSD that was minted by Instruxi and held by RAAC. And the result has been a top 15 global protocol that was ranking within weeks. And today I have representatives from ION, RAAC, and Instruxi. I'll let you guys go ahead and introduce yourself. If we want to start with Crusher.
Yeah, hey, good morning, everyone. My name's Crusher, or Kevin Rusher. I'm the founder and CEO of Regnomorum Acquisition Corp, or RAAC, which is designed to bring real-world assets on chain with a predefined liquidity infrastructure so they can be utilized in the ways that we know best within the DeFi ecosystem.
I guess I'll go next. I thought we were going to go in age order and attractiveness, which would put me at the last spot, but that's okay. My name is Ken Park. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and one of the directors at Ion Digital Corp. I've been with Ion now going on over 7 years, and really have been lucky enough to serve under our CEO, which is Carlos X Montoya, someone that comes from the banking world and brings a tremendous amount of knowledge on the TradFi side to it. And then equally lucky to have met, some innovators and brilliant, forward-thinking DeFi specialists at Instruxi first and foremost, and then at RAAC most recently. And it's just been an exciting, pathway that we've created. And I'm because I think it's a pretty extraordinary story that deserves some visibility.
Thank you, Julia. Matthew Harrowing. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Instruxi. We specialize in helping institutions bridge between Web 2 and Web 3 technologies. How you transfer value between the two ecosystems safely and securely and quickly without having to rewire all of your existing infrastructure.
Thank you, Matthew. And I'm Julia Main. I'm the marketing lead at Instruxi and the host today. Okay, so to get us started with the questions now that are more specific, let's start with what the Federation is. And this is open to any of you who want to answer. So for listeners who don't know what the Real World Asset Federation is, and have never come across anything like it before, what is it and why does it exist?
I'm going to jump in first because I think I appropriately would probably provide the highest level view of it from a kind of a storyline standpoint. But this concept of the real world asset digitization, tokenization ecosystem that's starting to form had gained so much momentum, and it's based on so many different parties that are sitting on physical value, physical value either in situ, meaning under the earth, or physical value of assets that are in hand. And this idea and this vision of tokenizing it. And along the way, I think each of the parties that are part of the founding partnership had come across, many, moments where clarity and definition and alignment was required. So I think we joined in as the third party because we saw that there was a recipe, if you will, for integrity and for quality assets, measurability of those assets, confirmation of the ownership of those assets, et cetera, being put in place by individual organizations. But I think we all came together in agreement that if we started to set standards that we could all operate by and align ourselves on, the industry would benefit from it instead of just being kind of a Wild West environment. So it really becomes a federation where everybody and anybody that's in this space can come in, and collectively we can start putting together, the belt and suspenders to make sure that we're doing this in a consistent and a fully aligned way, is the way that I would explain it at the highest level.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. When we think about what is an asset, those of us who've been in open finance or DeFi for a little while, and I'm really no expert. The struggle has been, well, how do we recognize value, and how do we control value? And there's been a lot of bad actors in open finance, and unsuspecting participants have lost money. And the governance layer hasn't been particularly strong. There's been a lot of emphasis put on how we govern the security around smart contracts, and there's a really robust and vibrant audit community. But what is an asset? It's a really basic question. And how can I know that if I'm trading an asset in open finance, that that asset actually is real, that it's being controlled, is custodied appropriately, is managed appropriately? And so on the one side, you've got open finance, which has loads of innovative ways of generating and providing financial services to a very open and global market, and very efficiently and effectively. But on the other side, we've got a very robust governance framework in accounting and law, and in finance as to what is an asset and how we trade an asset. And those two worlds haven't really bridged very effectively, leaving open finance with a lot of innovation and cool utility, lacking some of the governance that has created issues for the reason why banking has been slow to adopt, even though they've acknowledged clearly that the front office is better served using blockchain type technologies. So really what's missing is a decentralized governance layer that bridges between the two, that confirms what is an asset and is it still an asset? And so that there isn't a break in the governance where we go from decentralized to centralized. We create a vector of attack, and we have to think through that. And that's a multifaceted vector of attack. It's not just we're talking about a technology security vulnerability. We're also talking about business vulnerabilities. So the Federation was founded to, one, create an ecosystem of trust of how we work with assets, and two, bringing together partners that can support and come with a general consensus, and then watch each other's backs, quite frankly, and look out for each other to make sure that an asset is an asset and that the systems that it goes into can generate the type of returns that people are looking for that make it attractive, and that it is governed end to end. And I think so. What's interesting is Instruxi, we focus on plumbing. We focus on sitting behind the scenes and making sure everything works and that is well governed, etc. And with RAAC and with Kevin, you've got your quants. You've got your guys who know how to make money and how to run liquidity and how to generate income in open finance. And then with Ion, you've got your traditional business of we like to create securities and we like to trade securities, and we're focused on that market. And herein is the value. Transferring value between the two ecosystems enables you to create flywheels on how that value is transferred and leveraged. And so the Real World Asset Federation is an early stage group of folks, businesses that are coming together to say, we're going to set some rules, we're going to set some governance standards, and if people follow those rules and governance standards, come and participate. We'll open up the ecosystem so that we all benefit. We'll broaden out the opportunities, the liquidity opportunities, the asset opportunities, and let's all agree on how to do best practice in governance.
Thank you, Matthew. That was a great explanation. And to continue the narrative storyline we're kind of going with, I think it's great that we start at the very beginning, which all starts back before this project started with Ion. So Ken, this is a question for you. What did 200 million in gold actually look like before this collaboration? And why did Ion choose to pursue on-chain liquidity rather than the traditional lending and securitization route? Oh, are you on mute?
I'm, trying to be polite. So I was going to say the poetic answer to your question is that, $200 million in gold looks like a beautiful mountainscape and a beautiful lake, wildlife frolicking through the forests, and the ability to monetize, quantify, and bring to market the gold that is in the world's most robust vault called Mother Nature. And so I say that because we are changing a paradigm. This is still the capturing and assignment of a value, of storage of value. But instead of doing it so that I'm holding it in my hand, we're doing it using assay technology and the ability to very accurately predict how much gold is in the ground, and then allow the marketability and the value of that gold to come to the surface and be utilized in the economy to generate additional value, to fund additional products and projects, and to play a role in the finance industry exactly where it sits. So I set that out because, there was a vision that was started by Carlos Montoya that was, okay, what if we took all of this and then put, really, rigorous banking governance and, fintech, or more appropriately, tier one financial constructs around it, and we could put that into the form of a security, as Matthew said earlier, that would then sit in a balance sheet, not only of the reserve owner, but also as we do deals with the reserve owner to either buy, acquire, or manage those reserves, they would sit on the balance sheet in a treasury account that would allow us to collaterals, hypothecate, and put that value into a variety of financial instruments that create opportunity in the marketplace, and that's from a traditional sense. And so that was the vision from the early stages. I think it was at the time, blockchain was so new that we could see the efficiencies that were going to come with, open finance and a DeFi infrastructure. And so very early on, it was identified that if we could put it onto rails, and there was that transparency and you know, that measurability that, is inherent to the blockchain, that we could really create something that had that trust that Matthew was talking about, that actually, all of the documentation, and that's a lot of it. And so the second answer to your question is, what does $200 million in gold reserves look like? A big stack of papers, because it's a lot of legal documents and attestation documents and 43101 documents that make sure that that reserve, that claim is appropriately held by the appropriate owner so that a deal can be constructed around that. What gets exciting is that for several years, at least 3 or 4 years after we met Instruxi, we had this incredible engine to digitize real world assets, specifically gold, with, and we could see where all of this paperwork and all of this hard work funneled into a very identifiable vault where you could see the value of that gold, discounted the way that Ion does it in their business model, so that we're removing risk. We're playing a very conservative game of putting value on that so that we can then start to transact with it. And we kind of bumped our heads against the reality that, it was becoming in vogue and very popular to digitize assets, but once they're in the treasury, the transactional ecosystem, but even like the marketplace, hadn't been really formed yet. So, okay, I'm sitting with $200 million in digitized gold, or digitized gold reserves to be even more accurate. There has to be a party that then is willing to utilize that in the marketplace for there to be liquidity and value and exchange. Um, And so, the third answer to your question is, it looked like a lot of frustration, because you'd watch it, you'd see it. We know that the value's there, but the market hadn't matured yet to be able to facilitate it. And that's when, Matt and Instruxi introduced us to RAAC. We saw their vision for open finance, and it literally mirrored the vision that Carlos had had from day one, but in a DeFi space as opposed to a TradFi space. And it's kind of simplistic, but you have this TradFi company that's about physical tangible ownership of gold being, turned into a digitized form. You have this cutting edge, open finance company in RAAC, and then you have the company that builds a bridge between TradFi and DeFi and Instruxi. So it just kind of fell right into place. And all of a sudden, this circular economy was visible and you could see it. And it became a vision that we talked a lot about. And there was a tremendous amount of excitement around it. And then when the day comes and you actually start seeing the transactions take place and the liquidity pools grow and the public acceptance and maybe even the public questions or criticism arise, you realize that you're actually in a marketplace, a real marketplace that has been built from a vision in this case of 3 different companies at very different times. But then the visions kind of came together and we had this complete circle, this complete ecosystem circle. And I got to tell you, when you work on something as long and hard and passionately as everybody on this call has, and it comes together to actually form a marketplace, it's an extraordinary experience. It really is. It's something that I can't quite put into words. The closest thing I could do, having come from a creative background, is when you build a website and it starts as a vision, and then all of a sudden people are visiting it and going into it and interacting with the elements that you created for it. It's similar to that. It's like you have a vision, but you don't really know if it's going to be pleasing to the market until it's put into the market.
That's great. Thank you, Ken. I really like how you explained how it is kind of secular. And we all came together just at the right place in the right time to make what is the Federation now. And going into that, Crusher, I have a question for you. What was the structural gap in DeFi that RAAC was built to address? And what was the missing piece that made pmUSD viable and the success of what pmUSD is today?
Yeah, there's kind of 2 things to that. I think the most prominent and easiest to point out is DeFi needs stable collateral. I don't know how many times over the last 8 months that we've woken up to liquidation cascades, and just due to the geopolitical and macro instability, nothing is really escaping the volatility these days. So the need for a collateral that is more secure and globally accepted is the reason that we chose to work with Ion. And a really big thing is RAAC really started when USDC depegged. That was kind of our big aha moment. So when it comes to looking at collateral, the fact that there's no technical quote unquote custodian of the gold, where we're using Mother Nature as a vault, is another very big point for us. And the second point that RAAC addresses, over, I don't know, last like 8 years, if you've been around that long, you know how cyclical the place can be. My roots are as a humble farmer in the space. For us, it was also about the boom and bust cycles that crypto experiences. Yield is great till it's not, and we enter a bear, and we all kind of sit there twiddling our hands. The need for sustainable and predictable yield that isn't going to be moving up and down on you is exactly what DeFi needs, and seems to be the overall direction that the space is headed. Like you said, right place, right time. That we all connected to pull this together.
Thank you. And now, Matthew, for Instruxi's piece, can you walk us through how the pipeline was actually built from Ion to RAAC? In our case study that we've been working on, we describe a triple layer trust stack. Can you go through that for everyone listening? Matthew, you're on mute.
Well, thank
Sorry,
goodness he did it too.
we're all doing
I
it
feel
today.
so much better. I feel
Yeah,
like
I
I'm,
just in
vindicated. It's really
solidarity
good.
with you,
Thank
my
you.
friend. In solidarity. So when we think of a governance layer, like in any organization, let's start there. And I've been in systems and for my career really, and various parts of the finance market. When we think about that, it boils down to permissioning, and it boils down to making sure that information is transferred from one side of a business to another side timely, accurately, and securely, etc. And so it starts with really, who are you? The very basics of authorization. Who are you? And so, from a governance perspective, who are you? What can you do? And where can you do it? So that's the first layer. So you've got to have pretty robust elements around forming a governance that can bridge both worlds. So who can access infrastructure? What can they do with that infrastructure? And how much of that infrastructure can they work with? Then below that, and so we have a governance layer and a decentralized and distributed governance layer that bridges Web 2 and Web 3, quite frankly. So we have to know, firstly, the KYC and AMLs are robust, that the assets are transferred and custodied. And the second thing is the asset a real asset, independently audited, verified, the risks have been mitigated, the risks are known. Then from a technology perspective, we use a number of technologies to bind the systems that are off-chain to the tokens that are on-chain. And we use a number of protocols. We have our own technology to do that. And then we use Chainlink. And it was actually Chainlink that put Instruxi and RAAC together, because we're both Chainlink build partners. And my gratitude to them. They've got some phenomenal tech. So we use Chainlink like Lego pieces with our own tech to form an unbreakable and trustless golden thread between the token and the data that proves that the asset is an asset, that the asset is custodied and controlled and governed by the right people at the right time. And so it is a combination of a control framework and a technology framework that bind to form the golden thread between on and off chain. In our world, you should always be able to see live that the asset is the asset, regardless of whether you're trading, US treasuries or commodities. It doesn't matter. You should have confidence that these two ecosystems operate and interoperate as one organic system. Now, what's really interesting that we don't tend to talk a lot about is we talk about the concept of, not your keys, not your crypto, and we all understand how the public-private key pairing works. Now, but think of that in a broader context. Not my keys, not my ID, not my keys, not my car, my house, my DNA. So the concept of ownership and how we govern ownership and how we bind ownership of the asset and also governance of the asset, blockchain is actually a really robust and resilient piece of technology to help us think more broadly about security, and gives us additional security frameworks to work within, in that we can ensure that the whole end-to-end process is governed in a better way than we govern today. And I was talking to another company that's going to be using our technology, and they're deploying blockchain as part of their AI ecosystem because it's resilient. It's really resilient. If this this insecurity that we're seeing in the world and a geopolitical level continues, we need far more resilient systems to be able to handle disruption. And blockchain is a great tech as we move into this high-risk area. And we just need to think about it differently. We need to take the principles of Web3 and apply them to Web 2 to give us that resilience and that security and that governance framework. So this is really what we think about, the end-to-end. We think of it as one ecosystem. Blockchain is just another piece of technology that makes things a little more robust.
Thank you. And if you could add to that, how does our tech and TrustSync and using Chainlink oracles, how does that set us apart from a traditional annual audit?
Yeah, so if you look at the Genius Act, for instance, and look at the Genius Act is it's a remarkable piece of legislation. Enables people to create literally their own stable coins off their own assets. And once you've done that, you've now created a financial instrument, a financial product. If you've got a market for it, now you've got multiple ways of making yield. Now, the requirement is that there is an independent attestation, regular intervals, monthly, that verifies that the asset is the asset and the number is the number and that the controls are in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So one, it turns a quarterly audit into a much more robust continuous control monitoring framework, which the third-party auditors have been working to for a long time. There's no reason why we should be doing sampling in this day and age. There's no reason why we shouldn't be doing continuous control and continuous transaction monitoring, both from a financial and a fraud perspective. The technology has been there to do that for a while. People have just been a little slow to deploy it. It's mostly been done on log files. So what we do is we use Chainlink runtime to build in the governance layer, so that if you think of like a standard way that an oracle receives information, a number goes into from a database or from an administrator into an adapter and it gets deployed through the oracles. The number is the number and we rely on the number. Now, what we need to know is who put the number in, what number are they authorized to put in, who signs off the number, and then who independently verifies the number. Because when you're running payroll or you're looking at any kind of governance layer, you will have a set of authorities that one person can do. Maybe I can buy $10,000 worth of stationery a month, but I want to buy $100,000 next month. I have a sign-off procedures. These are standard business practices. Now, we've used Chainlink products to build those governance layers that Web2 businesses, normal businesses and financial institutions would expect in how they manage their assets. And then using Chainlink on our own technology, we're able to apply those same governance rules, whether you're accessing a row, field, column in Web2, or whether you're accessing and trading a token, staking, depositing, trading Ethereum versus USDC, whatever the asset is. Who are you? What can you do? Where can you do it? Governed end to end. So our thank you for asking the question. Our TrustSync technology binds those two and creates the golden thread between the on and off chain for independent verification and internal governance, bridging both worlds. It's fully configurable, so it will match the client's own internal control environment. We can put in as many control structures, as many limitations, both at a data field column and amount, and who, what, when, and how. Can they trade on a weekend? What should they be doing? What's the limitations that they can doing it be applied to their internal systems and also the Web3 ecosystem at the same time?
Thank you, Matthew. Now, finishing out this talk on the pipeline, we have ION, the asset holder. It goes through Instruxi for verification through TrustSync. And now we come to the end of it, which is RAAC. So once ION's gold is verified and on chain, Crusher, can you explain how RAAC takes over and what happens next?
Yeah, for sure. So after ION brings and digitizes the gold and brings it on through Instruxi's pipeline, it essentially ends up as RAAC to be collateralized and mint pmUSD. From there, it is basically deployed on chain. And our broader vision and goal at RAAC is to expand the on chain liquidity options for DeFi. And what we're looking to do is integrate as much as we can into existing systems, but focusing on our own core product. Right now, deploying and building up the liquidity to do so. I've always been a big believer in stablecoins are a feature and not the actual product when it comes to the real world asset federation and what we're building as a whole. It's good. So it comes on chain, gets deployed, and the point is to access a layered reward system. So at the base of the system, you have your curve and convex rewards. The second layer would be RAAC native token emissions. And the third layer is actually real world asset emissions. So we take the income from the assets that we're purchasing and basically redirect it on chain, allowing for that sustainable and predictable yield flow.
Thank you, Crusher. Moving on, but going also, we're going to be talking about this pipeline a lot. The governance layer, which Matthew touched on quite a bit. Governance tends to get less airtime than the actual tech, the fun part to a lot of the dev people or people who are super into DeFi, but it's obviously equally important. So let's get into what the Federation really provides for the asset holders. So Matthew, what does the Federation membership give a new member that they could not build efficiently on their own? And where does the saving on legal, compliance, and tokenization costs actually come from?
Right, a lot of questions there. So what do you get by joining an ecosystem that is expanding, that is trying to create some rules around establishing confidence between the two ecosystems for finance? What you get is an on-ramp into unlocking value from assets in a secure and governed way, where the custody doesn't change hands. So, for instance, the assets that Ion custody are their assets. The value that Kevin is generating it comes from a very complex ecosystem that they've built out of a number of financial products that are expanding, including asset purchases that are highly cash flow based in real world assets, creating a flywheel of value that provides a composite, a basket of yield. So normally in a money market, you would invest in a product, and that product would give you value assigned to that product. What these guys have done is created an ecosystem of value where the value is shared in a collaborative form for the benefit of the whole ecosystem. So if you have assets or you have liquidity, and rather than placing them in an overnight settlement where you're getting fractions on fractions on fractions, there are ways where that liquidity, your floats, your assets, so long as they're on a balance sheet and they're independently audited, then you can unlock value from them. And what we're talking about is the hypothecation of value, really. Now, so let's, if I may, just take 2 minutes and let's go back to some of the real world problems that we're actually seeing. So first job out of university, and I'm not going to say I was good at it. I was a rating analyst for Fitch. And so it was, we were looking at credit risk for specifically insurance companies, and Lloyd's blew up. And Lloyd's blew up at the time because they bought their own risk. And so they were incentivized to buy their own. And we see this all the time. We saw this in 2008 where people took triple B or B minus rated assets. They bundled them with triple A assets, and they created a balance, and they priced them incorrectly in the market. And so when the triple B or B minus assets started to collapse, or even junk assets at the time, they collapsed. It created a vacuum of value, which imploded everything. And so people have been creating these kind of asset baskets because you can't track the base layer of the value. Like if I'm buying my own risk, so with insurance, you have like your base risk. I've got 1,000 cars that I'm insuring. That's a book. Now I don't want to take the top tier of risk, so I'm going to sell that top tier to another company who's going to manage a book of top tier catastrophe risks when a comet lands in Florida. So companies specialize in that, but unfortunately, they were starting to buy back their own risk through the different products. So when part of it collapsed, it was a house of cards. Now you can't do that in an ecosystem where every asset is tracked from the system to its application. It is not a house of cards. It is a clear audit trail of how the asset is used and hypothecated across any environment. So if I have a basket of insurance policies that I am creating, that I'm seeding out to a reinsurer, and that reinsurer is seeding that out to other reinsurers, and there is a flow through of retrocessions going from the first to the last. You can track it in a blockchain environment. So when we talk about governance, we've got a situation where we've got assets coming in, and those assets can be tracked in how they are being used and hypothecated and collateralized. And we, as a collective, are building dashboards to make it, and APIs to make it really easy for people to manage their risk on how the asset portfolios are working. So what we're creating is an ecosystem with tools where people can participate, agree, add to the rules, strengthen the rules, make it better for the whole ecosystem, and govern that these assets, we can't rehypothecate and create these bubbles that have no connection to value. And what that does is, one, it creates a stability, and so we don't get these asset collapse cycles. But secondly, it enables all sorts of captured capital. Just think of all of the money locked in offshore trusts that is not being utilized, all of the free cash that's not being utilized, all of the property that is generating income, but the value isn't being utilized. So we are unlocking balance sheets in innovative ways that, quite frankly, we have never seen before. And so what does it get you? It gives you a seat in the future of what value looks like and how risk is to be managed.
Thank you, Matthew. It's true. I think the value prop is definitely undeniable at this point, especially with how much success we've seen with pmUSD.
I mean, I mean, hats off to Kevin and his team. The
Right.
guys are killing it, absolutely killing it. And you know, credit's due where credit's due, and they've created a stable yield now, really stable yield based in this ecosystem that is only growing and growing and growing every day. So hats off to you, mate. Nice job.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
thank you. I mean, it really is what we like to call the three-legged stool. It takes the asset provider, which is Ion Digital. It takes the tech provider, which is Instruxi and Chainlink, and then we're the liquidity infrastructure. So it's a group effort. Teamwork makes the dream work in this scenario for sure.
And you also get some humility from some of the parties in the Real World Asset Federation, which is good, because it's not, you know, it's not a virtue I have a lot of.
Right. Going to Crusher now, how does a shared governance framework reduce friction for institutional counterparties compared to a series of bilateral agreements?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it truly gives everyone a voice. I think rather than just unilateral decisions and being along for the ride, it really is a conglomerate of actors looking to bring trust, scale, and credibility to the real world asset space. So, I mean, we're big believers of knowing your lane and staying in it. So you can't have all the answers. So when it comes to things like this, it's very important to be leaning on the subject matter experts that compose the federation itself.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I do think I think you make a good point. I think it's too, even though there are a few core founding members, there are a lot of other parties in this, from law firms, accounting firms, smart contract auditing firms. It's and a shout out to everyone really who's come together to create this and make it what it is.
Agreed. I think we've really created a beautiful network to make everyone money. Speaking of money, let's talk outcomes. With pmUSD, we saw, of course, the 200 million on chain, locked, total value locked, a top 15 global protocol ranking, and yields, which in the second week were over 100%, but of course have now stabilized to around 16 to 30%, which is incredible, on this gold-backed collateral. If this is what year one looks like, I'm interested to see what the next chapter looks like for the Federation. Do any of you have any ideas of what you want to see in the next few quarters or the next year?
Yeah, I can give my perspective on that. Um, like you said, the yields were astronomical, stabilized to around 16 or 30. I think the really, really exciting thing for myself is the fact that that's just layer one. And like I mentioned, there's two more layers to go. So we'll be looking to scale the protocol, scale the yield, and introduce these new layers. Personally, most excited for the real world asset income gauge, where we redirect the income produced to liquidity on chain. So that's something that's a powerful mechanism that will start to scale. And right now, starting with real estate, but as the system grows, introducing new asset types and new income streams to the broader ecosystem.
I think from me, if I may, Ken, a final word on this. Better, more automated governance and better reporting. And we've got some things to share with the world around how we think that treasury contracts collectively should be governed and how we think they should, we've created some really cool technology that we're going to show. But we're going to be launching all sorts of new vibe coding platforms that enable you to build interoperability between these ecosystems out of the box. So we've got some new technology that will be supporting this for rapid on. We have several exchanges that are now looking to take these RAAC tokens and offer them as investments. Is the pmUSD and some of the gold-related assets as yield-bearing investments for. So we're seeing not only the bridge into Web 2, but also back out again. And we shouldn't be thinking in terms of Web 2 and Web 3 anymore. It's
That's
an
right.
ecosystem. It's an ecosystem that's merging together to utilize the best of both worlds.
And that's, what I would add to that is that, I think what I'm looking forward to in the next year and literally blown away by the success that, RAAC has had on the yield front. As a public company, we have to be a little bit more um, conservative about what we state and what we even promote relative to return and numbers and things of that nature. So I've had to train myself on that level and focus on the things that are very important to our shareholders, which obviously is going to be number one, revenues, number two, growth in the market, and number three, expansion into new areas. So I would answer the question, Julia, that I look forward to more conversations that are both DeFi and TradFi at the same time. So to Matthew's point, this isn't one camp or another camp or even a bridge between two camps. I look forward to the dialogues and the innovation that's going to come when it is a single discussion about a single ecosystem of next generation finance. And we're not going to be pointing to the new and the old or the traditional and the cutting edge. We're going to be looking at it as a way of moving and mobilizing the velocity of asset value into the marketplace for productive reasons. I think there's been a lot of discussion about, the growth, whether it's MicroStrategy or others that are doing, let's just accumulate a treasury. That's going to be our business model. And I think we've moved into a mindset of let's accumulate a treasury so that we can deploy it back into the marketplace and generate opportunity on both sides, or as I'm stating, not even having both sides in that discussion anymore, but just into the economy in general. So that what we're getting is the rapid increase in the funding and the fueling of programs that have societal benefit. We're doing that once again. It sounds like it's almost a marketing, term, but the reality is to be able to unlock the value of gold without ripping apart the earth and extracting it at all ridiculous costs, not just financial costs, but just environmental costs. I mean, sometimes it's so easy to overlook that simple act that, if we could start identifying value differently we could then utilize value differently. And if we can utilize value differently, we can create benefit differently. And so it's a complete change of mindset. And it's exciting to be a part of innovators on all facets of that pathway because, yes, it takes technological innovation, it takes financial innovation, and it also takes financial innovation and adoption from, a world that has really been closed off unto itself for a long time, which is the TradFi world. So I think it opens up uh, a very exciting time of collaborative innovation and exploration of new financial models that could actually fuel a completely different surge in societies. Not to get too highfalutin, but that's we're in a very exciting moment, and we're as a public representative of a public company, especially the marketing guy. The reality is that I have to be very disciplined, but I'd rather focus on the tangible, actual success because there's a ton of it. There really is a ton of it. Um, and I think that we're seeing innovation on a daily basis on phone calls where they weren't intended to be innovative discussions about new financial instruments or new liquidity channels. And all of a sudden, three people are sharing ideas from three different perspectives. And I'm talking as a part of the Federation. And all of a sudden, something is actually built, in a matter of days that facilitates that idea. I mean, the financial industry hasn't had that kind of velocity behind it in a very long time on the innovation side. So I think it's a pretty extraordinary time.
Agreed. I mean, y'all covered that segment great. So for the sake of time, I'm going to move forward a little bit in terms of our questions. And to touch on where tokenization is today, if we were to zoom out and look at what's happening now, in terms of what the Federation has built compared to firms like BlackRock and Franklin Templeton, what they're doing. I mean, Larry Fink just released his yearly commentary on what he thinks is going to happen this year. And it was basically all about tokenization and how that's where everyone's moving. Would you say, and this is open to for anyone to answer, would any of you say that the Federation is competing? Do you think we're complementary, or are we just a completely different part of the market?
I kind of want to jump in there and open up because I think it's different. So firstly, Web 2 doing what Web 2 does, but in Web 3, great. It's a little boring, but it's going to happen, and it needs to happen because the technology enables front office type better work more secure and more efficient. Great. Needs to happen. Here's what's interesting, and what's really interesting is so you've got open finance, cutting edge ideas, these types of things, and we're seeing the merge of the two. Like a lot of people got into blockchain. There was a big batch around about 2016, 2015, then 2020 and 2021 with DeFi summer. And a lot of thinking is still there in 2020 and 2021. A lot of thinking. And when people talk about their blockchain projects, I'm seeing a lot of white papers coming out that look like a 2020 white paper with an idea of what the world looks like. The value propositions in 2020. 2026, the value propositions are so very different. And they are so much greater and they are so much more. And the technology is so very, very different. And it's rare that you have 5 years of unprecedented innovation. Well, it's not unprecedented, but we've got other technologies that are exploding, but we've got this really disruptive technology that's innovating very rapidly every single day, and the value propositions are innovating. So when we're thinking, we're not just thinking about new financial instruments, which is amazing, ways of accessing the market, which is amazing, but whole new business models are coming out of this. And we don't see enough people talking about this. We see a lot of people thinking about what the business issues are they're going to fix, which tend to be legacy focused. The risk today is not the risk of, could this get hacked? Could I lose my assets? I mean, those are pretty well governed. The risk is obsolescence for your business. So we are complementary to what's going on, but we're embracing whole new ways of generating income and managing risk. Whether you're improving your process, it can be done better with new tech. Whether you're generating new revenue sources, rethink about how your business actually accesses value, how your balance sheet can be unlocked. You've got to be rethinking about that. Rethink about risk, rethink about the risk to your business even existing in a few years' time based on this. And how you're going to capture all of these new revenue sources. It's something that we've been chewing a lot internally because we see a 2026 world, we hear a 2021 world, and we've got to be thinking, more broadly about how we innovate in this new market. We've got a lot better tools than we had 5 years ago.
I agree totally. And it seems like our government is finally catching up as well. I'm not sure if any of you watched the tokenization hearing that the Financial Committee did the other day with people from NASDAQ and all of those different places. But it seems like legislation is finally catching up to where we have all been. And business models like the one we've started are really going to be able to blossom in this new comfortable field we have to work in. Now, moving on from that, I feel like we've kind of made it obvious, but to say it frankly, we would love to eventually expand the federation and bring on more asset holders. And in the case study we've been working on, it frames all of this as a template model that any institutional asset holder can follow. So I'd love if we could spend a little time on that. I do know we're about to hit the 11 a.m. mark, so if anyone does need to hop off, I totally understand. But I would love to get some answers on some of these questions. So first, Matthew, could you walk us through this kind of 3-step model of the verify, deploy, access, yield? How does the infrastructure built for gold transfer to different things like real estate, private credit?
It doesn't have to be gold. I mean, it's anything. So is the asset real? Deploy the kit, tokenize the asset. It's very easy. The kit's all built. It can be deployed, put in the governance layer, and then combine and then wire up your asset to the treasury contract and start minting. From a governance perspective, you maintain custody. You control the end-to-end, you control the assets all the way through the process. The custody doesn't change. And so what's interesting is we've created a vault structure that is bound with an edge framework into your Web2 systems. And we've got lots of different tech to various different ways of doing that. And then there's a governance layer that says, who are you? What can you do? And that's signed off by all parties. And there's, independent attestation, verification, types of things. And that vault structure enables any asset at any price in any stage, Dore bar, silver, titanium, doesn't matter at the moment. We've got liquidity based around gold. You can see the future is the future. It shouldn't be restricted to certain asset classes. It's going to expand to everything at the moment. And that's it. It goes into the treasury contracts. It's bound to the off-chain data and it's specific to your assets. And you press mint. And what you get is a token that goes that you deposit into the RAAC ecosystem, and then you control what happens next. And so the level of privacy that you want is entirely configurable, and the level, the governance framework, and the level of controls and sign-offs is also completely configurable in your own workflow to match your own business. And it's really simple. When I say it's really quick, it's really efficient, and it uses you've got a route through with Ion to create to securitize an asset, create a tradable legal wrapper for asset classes, and then technology from all the way through into stablecoin generating liquidity.
Right. It really is simple now. In layman's terms, we've broken trail. So all who follow will be able to, the path will be clear and in front of you. Moving on to Crusher, I'm interested to know what made the Federation scalable rather than bespoke.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the actors that are within the Federation. I don't think there any party here who attempted this by themselves would not be able to achieve the same scale and velocity that we have. I mean, being a DeFi guy, it all comes from collaboration and building on each other. And to touch on what Ken had pointed out earlier, yeah, just the ability to have these different perspectives from these different industries to build a better product, and that's really what's been the secret sauce.
Yes, totally. And then lastly, Ken, I'm interested to know what's next for Ion, and what would you tell an asset holder who was maybe on the fence about being a part of the Federation, or if they had any qualms, what would you say to them?
I think, and it's funny because I just had a discussion the other day, and I think that we're still in the mode um, where we're telling this story from an educational standpoint, because I think there's a lot of misconception. I think there's a lot of just brand new, net new information relative to, real world asset tokenization, the ecosystem, everything. Um, Heck, I am a student on a daily basis because, I had probably tired Crusher and Matt and the entire teams at Instruxi and RAAC out because, as a solution seeker, I keep asking questions about not necessarily the inner workings, because when you get a little glimpse of the inner working, it blows your mind. It's like going to a toy store, seeing how the smart contracts are created and how the transactional layers are put together. That's a fascinating experience unto itself, and I've been lucky enough to get deep into that and see it, and comprehend probably three-quarters of it if I'm going to give myself a break of even that much. But I think what is an interesting part is we want to educate because we have to grow our shareholder base. We're a public company. I have one end goal, and that's to represent our shareholders and to get more people to see us as a viable entity to ride into this new opportunity. That's my number one goal, and the best way to do that is to show them how this works and how this works in a real world way for companies that are trying to solve their problems through asset tokenization and through the utilization of an ecosystem. So, what's really important for us is to tell that story through actions. So we're going to be looking to, bring to the forefront as many off-chain transactions using pmUSD as we possibly can. And we've accomplished a lot already. I mean, we've paid off debt using pmUSD, giving it viability as a currency that has value not only intrinsic to the transfer of it, but also on the receiving side has value because there's additional yield and opportunity connected to it. So it's a very interesting and powerful way to transact as a corporate entity. And that includes, plans in the near future to use it for a compensation, vehicle for vendors and contractors, and even reward systems for employees and folks that are inside of Ion. And I say that not because I'm not trying to toot Ion's horn, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show that Ion is using the system to address the unique needs of Ion, but the system itself is malleable enough and the construct of it is satisfying and stable enough that you can have a new utilization of it on a daily basis. How does this work? It's not just about let me count my yield for today or last week. How this works is how can I utilize the deployment of my assets into this ecosystem to accomplish the end goals that every company has, which is how do I grow? How do I satisfy the shareholder? How do I deal with financial, opportunities and even, take advantage of financial channels that weren't available to me? And I think that would be my story, Julia, to the other organizations, is that you shouldn't be jumping in because you're fascinated or trying to ride the gold rush. I think we got to get past this and say, jump in because there's a utilization of the digital asset value that you've created that actually helps you solve the problems that you have on a daily basis as an organization, as a company, and it allows you to grow, and it allows you to pursue new avenues and new ideas, and it becomes an engine for economic, success. So that's where I think it's interesting. I feel like I'm constantly the old school guy that's talking about just, old school principles of business and utilization of this incredible innovation for the benefit of our corporate structure and for our partnerships and for our growth opportunities and you know, the opportunities that we can go out and get more gold reserves and get more partners, because the more gold we bring into the system, the more this engine, takes off. So the idea is this, I started with a circular analogy, and I think it's very much a circular end goal for this next 2 years, is that let's utilize to get new gold and new digital, new asset classes into the system, so that we continue to grow on the infrastructure that is solid and stable. And so that allows, not only us, but those that are participants in the ecosystem to actually utilize it for not just appreciation, value, but also for daily operational value as well. And I think that becomes a very important and potent moment for this. It's not just a sexy new investment vehicle. This is a actual a system that can be utilized for transactional success in a wide variety of ways and solutions. So
Honestly, it's not only unlocking new value in your balance sheets, but you're unlocking value also just being in the ecosystem. The more asset holders we add, the more money we all make. And then on top of that, it's not just monetary. Like y'all mentioned before, you hop on meetings and you learn new things and new ideas come about. And, we're inventing something new in just a few days. And the more great minds we have, the more ideas and innovations that will also come from that. So I think the thesis statement of this whole podcast is we've made a really beautiful, repeatable template for asset holders to come on and have an end-to-end pipeline, from minting to having liquidity. It's pretty much a one-stop shop. And it's been awesome to watch and be a part of, even just as the marketing girl. So if you are an institutional asset holder listening and you're sitting on real estate, precious metals, private credit, or commodities that are not currently generating you any on-chain yield, the message from today, I think, is clear. Like I said about the thesis statement, the infrastructure already exists. The legal and compliance framework already exists. The verification tooling that Instruxi has built already exists. It's working great. The compliance framework, everything, the deployment, it's all working architecture already. And we're looking to soon add members to the Federation. So if you're interested, please let us know and we can get you on-ramped. But if you want to know more, some websites you can visit which they'll also be linked in the podcast, but it'll be the RWAF.io as well as Instruxi.io or RAAC.io or iondigitalcorp.com.
Ken's showing off because he got the .com.
I wear it proudly. I wear it a little proudly. There's no doubt. It's gone full circle. There used to be a little bit of embarrassment. Now I'm just like, I'm the .com
I'm going to buy
guy.
iondigital.io just for some fun.
I already got it, buddy. Sorry. I'm not that stupid.
Okay.
It's been great talking to you all. Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation. I think I always learn something new every time we go about talking about this. And before we go, is there anything any of you want to mention or plug?
Julie, I want to jump in because, there's a lot of private moments where you get to say this, but not as many public moments. Is that it has truly been a pleasure working with this Federation construct, because there are dialogues that take place that are so deep and kind of go way beyond just the discussions of market tactics and market benefits and things of that nature. There's discussions that actually talk about, where we're all going as a finance community, and that transcends just numbers and financial gain. It actually does get into the discussion of impact. But I just want to thank the innovators that are always forward thinking at RAAC. Our relationship with Instruxi is now going on, I believe it's 6th or 7th year, and we couldn't be more thankful to have such a talented group behind us that are helping us put together the infrastructure. And then I also want to give a shout out to the team at Ion, because without the vision that Carlos X Montoya brought to the table, we wouldn't be realizing what we're realizing now. But there's a whole team of people, Carson and Kingsley and Caroline and others that, Ricky, and I don't want to leave anyone out, Doug, and all these people that are just working really hard to bring this vision to life. And I think, having a chance every once in a while to thank them for that hard work is something that I wanted to grab a moment.
Thank you, Ken. That's really sweet. Yeah, it is great to be able to look at all of the success now and see all the hard work has really paid off. Anything else from anyone else?
Thank you, Julia, for hosting today. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing from my end. Thank you so much, Julia. Appreciate it.
Thank
Oh,
you
we're going to
guys.
run a competition, by the way. If anyone can guess what Crusher really looks like, the most accurate depiction wins some pmUSD. So put your submissions into crusherlookslikethis.com or .io, either one. We own both of them.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll let us all get back to our work day, but thank you again for everyone for coming on, and I'll send you all the recording link after.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to the audience for joining us. And I hope everyone has a great day.
You as well. I'm going to end the session now. Thank you guys. Bye.